Section 2 of the Aeneid of Virgil. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Book 1, Part 2. His tender parent could no longer bear, but, interposing, sought to soothe his care. Whoe'er you are, not unbelov'd by Heaven, since on our friendly shore your ships are driven, have courage; to the gods permit the rest, and to the queen expose your just request. Now take this earnest of success, for more your scatter'd fleet is join'd upon the shore. The winds are chang'd, your friends from danger free, or I renounce my skill in augury. 12 swans behold in beauteous order move, and stoop with closing pinions from above, whom late the bird of Jove had driven along, and thro' the clouds pursued the scatt'ring throng. Now, all united in a goodly team, they skim the ground, and seek the quiet stream. As they, with joy returning, clap their wings, and ride the circuit of the skies in rings. Not otherwise your ships, and every friend, already hold the port, or with swift sails descend. No more advice is needful, but pursue the path before you, and the town in view. Thus having said, she turn'd, and made appear her neck refulgent, and dishevell'd hair, which, flowing from her shoulders, reach'd the ground, and widely spread ambrosial scents around. In length of train descends her sweeping gown, and by her graceful walk the queen of love is known. The prince pursued the parting deity with words like these: "Ah, whither do you fly, unkind and cruel, to deceive your son in burrow'd shapes, and his embraced shun? Never to bless my sight, but thus unknown, and still to speak in accents not your own?" Against the goddess these complaints he made, but took the path, and her commands obey'd. They march obscure, for Venus kindly shrouds with mists their persons, and involves in clouds, that thus unseen their passage none might stay, or force to tell the causes of their way. This part perform'd, the goddess flies sublime to visit Paphos and her native clime, where garlands, ever green and ever fair, with vows are offer'd, and with solemn prayer. 100 altars in her temples smoke, 1,000 bleeding hearts her pow'r invoke. They climb the next ascent, and looking down, now at a nearer distance view the town. The prince with wonder sees the stately tow'rs, which late were huts and shepherds' homely bow'rs, the gates and streets, and hears from every part the noise and busy concourse of the mart. The toiling Tyrians on each other call to ply their labour; some extend the wall, some build the citadel, the brawny throng, or dig or push unwieldy stones along. Some for their dwellings choose a spot of ground, which, first design'd, with ditches they surround. Some laws ordain, and some attend the choice Of holy senates, and elect by voice. Here some design a mole, while others there lay deep foundations for a theatre. From marble quarries mighty columns hew, for ornaments of scenes and future view. Such is their toil, and such their busy pains, as exercise the bees in flow'ry plains, when winter past, and summer scarce begun, invites them forth to labour in the sun. Some lead their youth abroad, while some condense their liquid store, and some in cells dispense. Some at the gate stand ready to receive the golden burthen, and their friends relieve. All with united force combine to drive the lazy drones from the laborious hive. With envy stung, they view each other's deeds; the fragrant work with diligence proceeds. "Thrice happy you, whose walls already rise," Aeneas said, and view'd, with lifted eyes, their lofty tow'rs. Then, ent'ring at the gate, conceal'd in clouds, prodigious to relate, he mix'd, unmark'd, among the busy throng, borne by the tide, and pass'd unseen along. Full in the centre of the town there stood, thick set with trees, a venerable wood. The Tyrians, landing near this holy ground, and digging here, a prosperous omen found. From under earth a courser's head they drew, their growth and future fortune to foreshow. This fated sign their foundress Juno gave, Of a soil fruitful, and a people brave. Sidonian Dido here with solemn state Did Juno's temple build, and consecrate, Enrich'd with gifts, and with a golden shrine; But more the goddess made the place divine. On brazen steps the marble threshold rose, And brazen plates the cedar beams enclose. The rafters are with brazen cov'rings crown'd, The lofty doors on brazen hinges sound. What first Aeneas this place beheld, Reviv'd his courage, and his fear expell'd. For, while expecting there the queen, he rais'd his wond'ring eyes, and round the temple gaz'd, Admir'd the fortune of the rising town, The striving artists, and their art's renown. He saw, in order painted on the wall, Whatever did unhappy Troy befall. The wars that fame around the world had blown, All to the life, and every leader known. There Agamemnon, Priam here he spies, And fierce Achilles, who both kings defies. He stopp'd, and weeping said: "O friend, even here the monuments of Trojan woes appear. Our known disasters fill even foreign lands. See there, where old unhappy Priam stands. Even the mute walls relate the warrior's fame, And Trojan griefs the Tyrians' pity claim." He said; his tears a ready passage find, Devouring what he saw, so well design'd, And with an empty picture fed his mind. For there he saw the fainting Grecians yield, And here the trembling Trojans quit the field, Pursued by fierce Achilles thro' the plain, On his high chariot driving o'er the slain. The tents of Rhesus next his grief renew, By their white sails betray'd to nightly view. And wakeful Diomed, whose cruel sword The sentries slew, nor spar'd their slumb'ring lord, Then took the fiery steeds, ere yet the food Of Troy they taste, or drink the Xanthian flood. Elsewhere he saw where Troilus defied Achilles, and unequal combat tried. Then, where the boy disarm'd with loosen'd reins, Was by his horses hurried o'er the plains, Hung by the neck and hair, and dragg'd around, The hostile spear yet sticking in his wound, With tracks of blood inscribed the dusty ground. Meantime the Trojan dames, oppress'd with woe, To Pallas' fane in long procession go, In hopes to reconcile their heav'nly foe. They weep, they beat their breasts, they rend their hair, And rich embroider'd vests for presents bear. But the stern goddess stands unmov'd with pray'r. Thrice round the Trojan walls Achilles drew The corpse of Hector, whom in fight he slew. Here Priam sues, and there for sums of gold The lifeless body of his son is sold. So sad an object, and so well express'd, Drew sighs and groans from the griev'd hero's breast, To see the figure of his lifeless friend, And his old sire his helpless hand extend. Himself he saw amidst the Grecian train, Mix'd in the bloody battle on the plain; And swarthy Memnon in his arms he knew, His pompous ensigns, and his Indian crew. Penthesilea there, with haughty grace, Leads to the wars an Amazonian race. In their right hands a pointed dart they wield; The left, for ward, sustains the lunar shield. Athwart her breast a golden belt she throws; Amidst the press alone provokes 1,000 foes, And dares her maiden arms to manly force oppose. Thus, while the Trojan prince employs his eyes Fix'd on the walls with wonder and surprise, The beauteous Dido, with a num'rous train And pomp of guards, ascends the sacred fane. Such on Eurotas' banks, or Cynthus' height, Diana seems, and so she charms the sight. When in the dance the graceful goddess leads The choir of nymphs, and overtops their heads, Known by her quiver and her lofty mien, She walks majestic, and she looks their queen. Latona sees her shine above the rest, And feeds with secret joy her silent breast. Such Dido was; with such becoming state Amidst the crowd she walks serenely great. Their labour to her future sway she speeds, And passing with a gracious glance proceeds. Then mounts the throne, high plac'd before the shrine. In crowds around the swarming people join. She takes petitions, and dispenses laws, Hears and determines every private cause. Their tasks in equal portions she divides, And, where unequal, there by lots decides. Another way by chance Aeneas bends his eyes, And unexpected sees his friends, Antheus, Sergestus grave, Cloanthus strong, And at their backs a mighty Trojan throng, Whom late the tempest on the billows toss'd, And widely scatter'd on another coast. The prince, unseen, surpris'd with wonder stands, And longs with joyful haste to join their hands. But, doubtful of the wish'd event, he stays, And from the hollow cloud his friends surveys, Impatient till they told their present state, And where they left their ships, and what their fate, And why they came, and what was their request. For these were sent, commission'd by the rest, To sue for leave to land their sickly men, And gain admission to the gracious queen. Entering, with cries they fill'd the holy fane. Then thus, with lowly voice, Ilioneus began: "O queen, indulg'd by favour of the gods, To found an empire in these new abodes, To build a town, with statutes to restrain The wild inhabitants beneath thy reign, We wretched Trojans, toss'd on every shore, From sea to sea, thy clemency implore. Forbid the fires our shipping to deface, Receive the unhappy fugitives to grace, And spare the remnant of a pious race. We come not with design of wasteful prey, To drive the country, force the swains away; Nor such our strength, nor such is our desire: The vanquish'd dare not to such thoughts aspire. A land there is, Hesperia nam'd of old; The soil is fruitful, and the men are bold. The Oenotrians held it once, by common fame Now call'd Italia, from the leader's name. To that sweet region was our voyage bent, When winds and every warring element Disturb'd our course, and, far from sight of land, Cast our torn vessels on the moving sand. The sea came on; the south, with mighty roar, Dispers'd and dash'd the rest upon the rocky shore. Those few you see escaped the storm and fear, Unless you interpose a shipwreck here. What men, what monsters, what inhuman race, What laws, what barbarous customs of the place, Shut up a desert shore to drowning men, And drive us to the cruel seas again? If our hard fortune no compassion draws, Nor hospitable rites, nor human laws, The gods are just, and will revenge our cause. Aeneas was our prince; a juster lord Or nobler warrior never drew a sword. Observant of the right, religious of his word, If yet he lives, and draws this vital air, Nor we, his friends, of safety shall despair, Nor you, great queen, these offices repent, Which he will equal, and perhaps augment. We want not cities, nor Sicilian coasts, Where King Acestes Trojan lineage boasts. Permit our ships a shelter on your shores, Refitted from your woods with planks and oars, That, if our prince be safe, we may renew Our destined course, and Italy pursue. But if, O best of men, the fates ordain That thou art swallow'd in the Libyan main, And if our young Iulus be no more, Dismiss our navy from your friendly shore, That we to good Acestes may return, And with our friends our common losses mourn." Thus spoke Ilioneus. The Trojan crew, With cries and clamours, his request renew. The modest queen, awhile, with downcast eyes, Ponder'd the speech; then briefly thus replies: "Trojans, dismiss your fears. My cruel fate, And doubts attending an unsettled state, Force me to guard my coast from foreign foes. Who has not heard the story of your woes, The name and fortune of your native place, The fame and valour of the Phrygian race? We Tyrians are not so devoid of sense, nor so remote from Phoebus' influence, whether to Latian shores your course is bent, or driven by tempests from your first intent. You seek the good Acestes' government, your men shall be receiv'd, your fleet repair'd, and sail with ships of convoy for your guard. Or would you stay, and join your friendly powers to raise and to defend the Tyrian towers? My wealth, my city, and myself are yours. And would to heav'n the storm you felt would bring on Carthaginian coasts your wandering king! My people shall, by my command, explore the ports and creeks of every winding shore, and towns, and wilds, and shady woods, in quest of so renown'd and so desir'd a guest. Rais'd in his mind, the Trojan hero stood, and long'd to break from out his ambient cloud. Achates found it, and thus urg'd his way: "From whence, O goddess born, this long delay? What more can you desire? Your welcome sure, your fleet in safety, and your friends secure. One only wants, and him we saw in vain oppose the storm, and swallow'd in the main. Orontes in his fate our forfeit paid; the rest agrees with what your mother said." Scarce had he spoken, when the cloud gave way, the mists flew upward, and dissolv'd in day. The Trojan chief appear'd in open sight, August in visage, and serenely bright. His mother goddess, with her hands divine, Had form'd his curling locks, and made his temples shine, And given his rolling eyes a sparkling grace, And breath'd a youthful vigour on his face, Like polish'd ivory, beauteous to behold, Or Parian marble when enchas'd in gold. Thus radiant from the circling cloud he broke, And thus with manly modesty he spoke: "He whom you seek am I, by tempests toss'd, And sav'd from shipwreck on your Libyan coast, Presenting, gracious queen, before your throne A prince that owes his life to you alone. Fair majesty, the refuge and redress Of those whom fate pursues, and wants oppress, you who your pious offices employ To save the relics of abandon'd Troy, receive the shipwreck'd on your friendly shore, With hospitable rites relieve the poor. Associate in your town a wandering train, And strangers in your palace entertain. What thanks can wretched fugitives return, Who, scatter'd through the world, in exile mourn? The gods, if gods to goodness are inclin'd, If acts of mercy touch their heav'nly mind, And, more than all the gods, your gen'rous heart, Conscious of worth, requite its own desert. In you this age is happy, and this earth, And parents more than mortal gave you birth. While rolling rivers into seas shall run, And round the space of heav'n the radiant sun, While trees the mountain tops with shade supply, Your honour, name, and praise shall never die. Whate'er abode my fortune has assign'd, Your image shall be present in my mind." Thus having said, he turn'd with pious haste, And joyful his expecting friends embrac'd. With his right hand Ilioneus was grac'd, Serestus with his left; then to his breast Cloanthus and the noble Gyas press'd, And so by turns descended to the rest. The Tyrian queen stood fix'd upon his face, Pleas'd with his motions, ravish'd with his grace, Admir'd his fortunes, more admir'd the man; Then recollected stood, and thus began: "What fate, O goddess born, what angry powers Have cast you shipwreck'd on our barren shores? Are you the great Aeneas, known to fame, Who from celestial seed your lineage claim? The same Aeneas whom fair Venus bore To fam'd Anchises on the Idaean shore? It calls into my mind, tho' then a child, When Teucer came, from Salamis exil'd, And sought my father's aid to be restor'd. My father Belus then with fire and sword Invaded Cyprus, made the region bare, And, conqu'ring, finish'd the successful war. From him the Trojan siege I understood, The Grecian chiefs, and your illustrious blood. Your foe himself the Dardan valour prais'd, And his own ancestry from Trojans rais'd. Enter, my noble guest, and you shall find, if not a costly welcome, yet a kind. For I myself, like you, have been distress'd, till heav'n afforded me this place of rest. Like you, an alien in a land unknown, I learn to pity woes so like my own." She said, and to the palace led her guest, then offer'd incense, and proclaim'd a feast. Nor yet less careful for her absent friends, twice 10 fat oxen to the ships she sends, besides 100 boars, 100 lambs, with bleating cries attend their milky dams. And jars of gen'rous wine and spacious bowls she gives, to cheer the sailors' drooping souls. Now purple hangings clothe the palace walls, and sumptuous feasts are made in splendid halls. On Tyrian carpets richly wrought they dine, with loads of massy plate the sideboards shine, and antique vases all of gold emboss'd, the gold itself inferior to the cost, of curious work, where on the sides were seen the fights and figures of illustrious men, from their first founder to the present queen. The good Aeneas, paternal care Iülus' absence could no longer bear, dispatch'd Achates to the ships in haste, to give a glad relation of the past, and, fraught with precious gifts, to bring the boy, snatch'd from the ruins of unhappy Troy, a robe of tissue, stiff with golden wire, an upper vest, once Helen's rich attire. From Argos by the fam'd adult'ress brought, with golden flowers and winding foliage wrought, her mother Leda's present, when she came to ruin Troy and set the world on flame. The scepter Priam's eldest daughter bore, her orient necklace, and the crown she wore, of double texture, glorious to behold, one order set with gems, and one with gold. Instructed thus, the wise Achates goes, and in his diligence his duty shows. But Venus, anxious for her son's affairs, new counsels tries, and new designs prepares, that Cupid should assume the shape and face of sweet Ascanius, and the sprightly grace should bring the presents in her nephew's stead, and in Eliza's veins the gentle poison shed. For much she fear'd the Tyrians double-tongued, and knew the town to Juno's care belong'd. These thoughts by night her golden slumbers broke, and thus alarm'd to winged love she spoke: "My son, my strength, whose mighty pow'r alone Controls the thunder on his awful throne, to thee thy much afflicted mother flies, and on thy succour and thy faith relies. Thou know'st, my son, how Jove's revengeful wife by force and fraud attempts thy brother's life, and often hast thou mourn'd with me his pains. Him Dido now with blandishment detains, but I suspect the town where Juno reigns. For this 'tis needful to prevent her art, and fire with love the proud Phoenician's heart, a love so violent, so strong, so sure, as neither age can change nor art can cure. How this may be perform'd, now take my mind. Ascanius by his father is design'd to come with presents laden from the port, to gratify the queen and gain the court. I mean to plunge the boy in pleasing sleep, and, ravish'd, in Idalian bow'rs to keep, or high Cythera, that the sweet deceit may pass unseen, and none prevent the cheat. Take thou his form and shape; I beg the grace but only for a night's revolving space. Thyself a boy, assume a boy's dissembled face, that when, amidst the fervour of the feast, the Tyrian hugs and fonds thee on her breast, and with sweet kisses in her arms constrains, thou mayst infuse thy venom in her veins." The god of love obeys, and sets aside his bow and quiver, and his plumy pride. He walks Iülus in his mother's sight, and in the sweet resemblance takes delight. The goddess then to young Ascanius flies, and in a pleasing slumber seals his eyes. Lull'd in her lap, amidst a train of loves, she gently bears him to her blissful groves. Then with a wreath of myrtle crowns his head, and softly lays him on a flowery bed. Cupid meantime assum'd his form and face, following Achates with a shorter pace. and brought the gifts. The queen already sate amidst the Trojan lords in shining state, high on a golden bed. Her princely guest was next her side, in order set the rest. Then canisters with bread are heap'd on high; th' attendants water for their hands supply, and having wash'd with silken towels dry, next 50 handmaids in long order bore the censers, and with fumes the gods adore. Then youths and virgins twice as many join, to place the dishes, and to serve the wine. The Tyrian train, admitted to the feast, approach, and on the painted couches rest. All on the Trojan gifts with wonder gaze, but view the beauteous boy with more amaze. His rosy-colour'd cheeks, his radiant eyes, his motions, voice, and shape, and all the gods disguise. Nor pass unprais'd the vest and veil divine, which wand'ring foliage and rich flowers entwine. But, far above the rest, the royal dame, already doom'd to love's disastrous flame, with eyes insatiate and tumultuous joy, beholds the presents, and admires the boy. The guileful god about the hero long with children's play and false embraces hung. Then sought the queen; she took him to her arms with greedy pleasure, and devour'd his charms. Unhappy Dido little thought what guest how dire a god she drew so near her breast. But he, not mindless of his mother's pray'r, works in the pliant bosom of the fair, and moulds her heart anew, and blots her former care. The dead is to the living love resign'd, and all Aeneas enters in her mind. Now when the rage of hunger was appeas'd, the meat remov'd, and every guest was pleas'd, the golden bowls with sparkling wine are crown'd, and thro' the palace cheerful cries resound. From gilded roofs depending lamps display nocturnal beams that emulate the day. A golden bowl, that shone with gems divine, the queen commanded to be crown'd with wine. The bowl that Belus us'd, and all the Tyrian line. Then silence thro' the hall proclaim'd, she spoke: "O hospitable Jove, we thus invoke with solemn rites thy sacred name and pow'r. Bless to both nations this auspicious hour. So may the Trojan and the Tyrian line in lasting concord from this day combine. Thou, Bacchus, god of joys and friendly cheer, and gracious Juno, both be present here. And you, my lords of Tyre, your vows address to heav'n with mine, to ratify the peace." The goblet then she took, with nectar crown'd, sprinkling the first libations on the ground, and rais'd it to her mouth with sober grace; then, sipping, offer'd the next in place. 'Twas Bitias whom she call'd, a thirsty soul. He took challenge, and embrac'd the bowl; with pleasure swill'd the gold, nor ceas'd to draw, till he the bottom of the brimmer saw. The goblet goes around. Iopus brought his golden lyre, and sung what ancient Atlas taught, the various labours of the wand'ring moon, and whence proceed th' eclipses of the sun; th' original of men and beasts, and whence the rains arise, and fires their warmth dispense, and fix'd and erring stars dispose their influence; what shakes the solid earth, what cause delays the summer nights, and shortens winter days. With peals of shouts the Tyrians praise the song; those peals are echoed by the Trojan throng. The unhappy queen with talk prolong'd the night, and drank large draughts of love with vast delight. Of Priam much enquir'd, of Hector more; then ask'd what arms the swarthy Memnon wore, what troops he landed on the Trojan shore. The steeds of Diomed varied the discourse, and fierce Achilles with his matchless force. At length, as fate and her ill stars requir'd, to hear the series of the war desir'd, "Relate at large, my godlike guest," she said, "the Grecian stratagems, the town betray'd, the fatal issue of so long a war. Your flight, your wand'rings, and your woes declare. For, since on every sea, on every coast, your men have been distress'd, your navy toss'd, 7 times the sun has either tropic view'd, the winter banish'd, and the spring renew'd. Section 2.